In the last presentation, I had presented to you the basic problems of an economy, and we try to understand how these basic problems can be explained with the help of a graph and a table. And these problems were what goods to produce, how to produce, and for whom. This particular lesson, we shall look into the working of an economy and try and understand how different kinds of economies solve the same problem using different methods. While I was a student, we had a subject called Economic Systems. And in that subject, we had studied variety of economic systems that were prevalent at that in that world. And today we just use three words of economic systems, that is capitalism, socialism, and mixed. All other forms of systems have in some way got subsumed into these three words. So let me go to the slides, and I'm sure that you're making use of the points that I present on the slides, though they may be a little longer than what is expected, mainly with an intention that you can use them as notes. So, how do we define an economy? Now, when we use a definition, we mean that it gives us exactly the meaning of the term, and that way, the way we define the term is the way any student of economics will understand that term. So, it is important for us to learn some of these definitions because they just are concepts, and the concepts are given a meaning. Now, there are important economic activities that happen in all economies, that is, of production, consumption, and distribution or trade. And these activities are carried on so that the wheels of economics can actually move. And it will answer the basic problems of how, what, and for whom to produce. So, what is economy? Economy actually functions as an outcome of interactions. Now, when we are talking about interactions, we are meaning the producers are among themselves, they interact with others. The consumers interact with the producers, and individually also consumers have a certain way in which they carry on their day-to-day purchase, consumption, so on. We also know that there are sellers, there are investors, there are bankers, there are governments, and so many other economic agents actively engaged in an economy. So each economy works on a unique set of conditions. Now we cannot compare one economy to the other in minute details and say that why that economy is doing it and why our economy cannot do it, because there is something of an ideological character. There is something that is very uniquely of that particular country. That's why what happens to one country may not easily happen to another country, and a policy that happens in one country cannot be applied to the other country. When I have taught this lesson, I have always had students asking me, when country A could do that, why can't we do that? And that is why a lesson of this kind will help you to understand how economies are so different from each other. Now, we will now look into three kinds of economy: the capitalist economy, the socialist economy, and the mixed economy. Capitalist economy is quite easy to understand because that's based on Adam Smith and his ideas of free market. Now you see how the ideas of Adam Smith are still used now. What did he say? He says that there is freedom to invest and everything is about freedom. So this capitalist economy is also called as a market economy, and the basis of economic systems or economies of different kind is based on the ownership of the means of production. Now, when you understand the ownership of means of production, sometime later we will make a presentation on um, the interesting theories of Karl Marx, where we will see how economic systems have changed over time. Right. So here, when we talk about capitalism, we are talking about means of production. And in a capitalist economy, the means of production are with individuals or with private entities. Now, it means that individuals can own property, they can accumulate property, and it is supported by the law of inheritance, which means the property can be passed on to the next generation or the legal heirs. Then individuals in a capitalist economy are free to consume according to their choice and according to the price that are prevalent in the market. If somebody has more money, they could purchase more. Somebody has less money, they can purchase less. And looking further into this economic system of the capitalism, we understand that individuals are free to invest, they are free to compete and to make a contract with others in their self-interest because they are going to take their economic decisions. I am sure that the ideas of Adam Smith are now ringing clear in your minds. Now, this is what Adam Smith was talking about in 1776, and today we are still practicing those ideas. And profit making is the fundamental motive of all economic activities. So everybody, all producers are engaged in carrying out those activities which give profit to them, and the basic problems of what to produce, how to produce, and for whom to produce is solved by using what is called as the price mechanism. Price mechanism, we will see it when we do the theory of consumer behavior. We will try and understand price mechanism. For the time being, price mechanism means the interaction of demand and supply determines the price, and that price determination decides all economic activities. And in a capitalist economy, the government has a very minimal role, like what Smith talked about, the government's role. So that is what is in practice for capitalist economies. And we say that many of these countries of the world are capitalist economies like the USA, UK, France, Australia, etc. They are all known as capitalist economies because they solve their basic problems using price or market mechanism. Now let's look at socialist economy. That's quite different from the capitalist economy. Um, as I told you, there is a philosophical background to each economy. There is a philosophical, social, political, and economic ideology that drives economies, and that is what makes one economy different from another economy. Now, communism was a word that was used sometime in the 1860s, and it was that it emerged as a uh, as something against the capitalist industrial production, where it was felt that there was exploitation of workers and too much of profit motive was guiding economic activities. So there emerged another school of thought called the socialist thinkers, and these socialist thinkers, they suggested that all the production factors of production or means of production are no longer given to individuals. They should be owned by the community. So when it is owned by the community, individuals will not be guided by profit motive, as the means of production are no longer theirs and they don't have the freedom to own them. So this idea of common ownership and means of production, actually, when Karl Marx's idea of how an economic system works, it got much clearer to people. And then we have the Bolshevik Revolution of 1917, and that's what I told you. A student of economics also keep in touch with the history that you have studied, because that is very useful to understand economic situations that are prevalent today. So this Bolshevik Revolution of 1917 helped cement that idea of the common property or common ownership of factors of production, and that is how the socialism as an idea emerged. Now, communism talks about all the activities that are in a country, which could include the political ideologies, it could include the production ideologies, the society, the way it lived. But when we use the word socialism, we at that time it was intended only to mean the economic activities of production and consumption. So in this system, we can understand that the belief is that public ownership or community ownership of the resources of production will lead to better distribution of resources rather than in the market mechanism. And this system, the 1917's revolution led to the formation of the Soviet Union. Now, socialism is based on cooperation rather than on competition. The entire capitalist idea is based on competition. So, competition to get the best in terms of prices, competition to produce the best in terms of profit. So, it was based on competition among firms, competition among individuals, and the firms. So, this was how competition was. Here, we are talking about, instead of competition, we talk about cooperation, and economic activities are carried on through economic planning. In the earlier system, I just told you that everything is decided by the price mechanism. Here, economic activities of how to produce, what to produce, and for whom to produce is actually solved through the government, where the government has got an elaborate administrative machinery, a bureaucratic machinery, which will plan the economic system. So, all the economic activities are decided by the government, and there is a role for price mechanism, but the role is very limited. If there are excess in the of production of something, or there is a shortage of something in the economy, then it can be understood that the price is high or price is too low. Beyond that, theoretically, this model does not use price mechanism, and the motive of this system is to provide maximum welfare to its people against the capitalist economy, which was interested in making the profit as the motive. And but what happened was the economic system of the socialist kind actually collapsed. It survived for almost a human age, but then it collapsed sometime. It started its problems in 1980. It is considered to be an artificial system because it has to be managed by the government. The entire economic system has to be managed by the government, and it is said that it could not. It is understood that it could not continue. It could not sustain that kind of economic system. And the fall of Soviet Union itself took place in 1991. And in its strictest form today, actually, there is no country in the world which follows the pure socialist system. The political ideology of communism still holds good, but the in all these economies of variants of that is seen in the economies of China, Cuba, North Vietnam, North Korea, Laos, and they remain as communal states, but they are also today dependent on market for production and consumption, because you can see today China, for example, is using market mechanism to carry on most of its economic activities. Then comes the other system, which is called the mixed economy. Now, mixed economy is something that has got the features of capitalism and socialism. So, it obviously means it will have some elements of state control, and it will have some elements that will be run by the market mechanism. And it appreciates the advantages of one system and also understands the limitation of that system. So, it takes, in some sense, it takes the best of both the systems to carry on its economic activities. It means that there is private property as well as government property, and the economic decisions are taken both by the private entities, economic entities, and also by the government. And economic planning is a character of such system. So the economic system does not have automatic working totally, but there is some economics of markets, but at the same time there is the government which also activates economic activities. So there is freedom to carry on economic activities, but also there are controls in handling economic activities. And that is the way in a mixed economy it works. So we have freedom as well as we have control, and state is involved in allocating resources. It also sets production targets for what needs to be produced, how to be produced, and leaves many production goods to the market, which the markets can also produce. And it has both. Now, interestingly, it is also interested in welfare of its people on one hand, and it also motivates economic entities to be engaged for the sake of making profit. And you also find that there is a social goal of welfare and individual goal of profit motive. These happen very naturally, very organically. It happens in a mixed economy, and there is organized, harmonious organization of the private sector and the public sector in such kind of economies. Now, you want to understand examples of this kind of an economy, you must understand Indian economy, which is one of the best examples of a mixed economy because we have both capitalism and socialism. So the question that I ask you here is, um, the capitalist system is considered to be enjoying freedom. Do you think that this kind of economic freedom is good for a nation and its people? And what can this kind of freedom do to its people in terms of consumption? What does it have any problems that it might lead to if this kind of freedom is given in consumption or production or in distribution as well? Do you think there could be some difficulties due to this kind of freedom? That's what I was trying to ask you. And you may want to understand the Indian economy, its present condition, and compare the Indian economy to the immediately after independence. What happened to the economic system that we followed in the early years after independence, and what happened to the economy after 1991 to this Indian economy? I will make a presentation to you later when I shall discuss this particular issue about from 1947 to 91 and 91 to this. So that is something you can look out for. Try and answer these kind of questions, and thank you very much. I'm sure that you will subscribe to this channel and help other students also to learn economics. Thank